eBay just lost $23,000 on a mislabeled Beckett card. What does it mean for the sports card hobby? We'll debate now. Hello, sports card investors, and welcome to another episode of Cards on the Table. And guys, my goodness, Teapot Doug, we've got a big story to unpack involving a lot of dollars that have been lost at the top of this show today. Have you guys been following this for the last few weeks?
Oh, yeah.
Yep.
This has been absolutely wild. So to bring you up to speed on this story, because this has a lot of nuance, right? A few weeks ago, a seller listed a 1997 Metal Universe Precious Metal Gems card, a Michael Jordan card on eBay. This is a absolute grail card. These cards ordinarily would sell for hundreds of thousands of dollars if it was graded even decently well. This card was in a Beckett slab and it was marked as altered. Now that by itself is not necessarily that scary for a Precious Metal Gems card. That could mean that it was slightly trimmed. That could mean that maybe somebody added a little bit of recoloring to it. Obviously, they'll bring the value down some, but it could still be a very, very valuable card. But there seemed to be a little bit more to the story with this one. There was a lot of chatter on social media that maybe this wasn't actually a Precious Metal Gems card at all. And in fact, Adam Gray, the Real 27 guy, friend of the show, he did a great video breaking all this down on his Instagram. Anyway, the card's at auction. It sells for around $23,000. A buyer by the name of Ben buys the card. Everyone's kind of now wondering, well, what's going to happen? Well, guess what? The card goes through eBay's authenticity guarantee, and eBay's authenticity guarantee, which I think they do in partnership with PSA, they give it the thumbs up as authentic. Now, there's a little bit of a nuance there. We're going to talk about that in a minute.
A big nuance.
But they give it the thumbs up as authentic. The card ships to the buyer, and now Ben has this card, but he's not sure if it's legit or not. Now, thankfully, because there were a lot of videos and social chatter about this, eBay and Beckett contact the buyer after he receives the card and say, hey, we'd like to take a second look at it. The buyer ships the card to Beckett. Beckett looks at it and confirms what all the social chatter and videos had alleged. It's not a real Precious Metal Gems card. In fact, it was a base Michael Jordan card from Metal Universe, which is infinitely less valuable, that somebody had taken a red marker and just run the red marker over the top of the card, and Beckett slabbed it as a Precious Metal Gems altered card. A massive mistake. So Beckett confirms the mistake. eBay says, we're going to refund you, buyer Ben, the $23,000 you paid. But eBay also says we're still going to pay the seller out their $23,000 for the card as well that they got, because this was not the seller's mistake. Maybe it wasn't. Maybe we're going to pay them out anyway. They got paid out the $23,000. Ben gets his $23,000 back. eBay's out $23,000. Beckett, who screwed up to begin this all with, isn't out anything, apparently, other than maybe their pride and ego, perhaps, on this. And that's how this has unfolded. Now, a couple of really interesting notes, one of which is eBay's authenticity guarantee. When it applies to slabs, they are simply guaranteeing that the slab and the label are real and match the grading company's population. They are not guaranteeing that the card inside the slab is real or that the card matches the label. They're not guaranteeing that. So in this case, it properly passed eBay's authenticity guarantee, even though there was obviously a major problem with this card. eBay, I guess, probably didn't really have to give the buyer back their money, but chose to do so anyway because there was a lot of hubbub about it in this situation. The buyer, Ben, documented this whole entire thing on his own YouTube channel that he created called Fake PMG Saga. if you want to go learn more about this whole story. It's really interesting. So what does this all mean? Where does this all lead? There's so many intricacies and details here. Teapot, unpack this for me. I'm going to start with you.
I'm really glad that Ben, the original buyer, got his money back.
Yes.
That's what I'm most
First and
relieved to hear.
foremost. Absolutely.
I got to say also, just as an aside, I am incredibly impressed with his humility and just positive attitude through this. It was like a masterclass in personal accountability. Through the whole thing, he said, look, I'm new. I made a big mistake. I didn't know what I was getting into. I thought this card was real. He didn't blame anybody else. He literally said, some of you might make fun of me or say, what an idiot or whatever. He didn't care. He's like, I made a mistake. I got to own it. Now I'm going to try to get my money back. And the whole while, I was just incredibly impressed with like being a grown-up, being a mature person. So go watch his videos, if anything, for that. Also, Neo, Northeast Ohio Sports Cards and Comics, did a great video. And generally, I agree with his takes on most things. I think Rob is pretty level-headed. I actually disagree with one point from his video, and that was that he said it would be impossible for any of the grading companies to guarantee the authenticity of a card through the slab. While it may not be possible to guarantee it's authentic, you can definitely guarantee that it's not, which is what Adam and Dan, the card man, and others did in this case. And so to me, even though I understand that's not within the scope of eBay's authenticity guarantee, maybe it should be. Maybe they should look at it for issues for red flags or PSA if they're doing that authenticity. Look at the card. It comes through. It's got no PMG on the back, no serial number. It obviously looks altered. And this was Beckett's screw up, but like, don't send that through and have this whole scenario happen in the first place. I think what they said the final outcome was that Beckett had actually registered it on their pop report as an altered base card, but mislabeled it. So the label was what was wrong, but the pop report was apparently correct. I think they should have been able to detect it through authenticity. Obviously, Beckett should have never had this happen in the first place. It's another instance of egg on their face while they're trying to rebuild their brand image. And the last thing I would say is I just kind of find it a little disturbing that the seller did get paid out. Maybe they were completely exempt, but Ben said in his original messages that the seller told him he was the one who submitted the card. Well, you got to know if you're submitting that card that that's not a real, like, what's the backstory there? I'd love to have more of that information, probably never will. I don't like that.
Yeah, I worry that could lead to more bad actors essentially trying to kind of clean cards through eBay almost, and how this whole eBay authenticity guarantee thing works. I don't know. What's your take on all of this, Doug?
I'll be curious to see if eBay does anything policy-wise going forward about this. Ben's video would suggest he actually asked that question to eBay. He was on a three-way call with eBay and Beckett, and he apparently asked eBay if they're going to change any policies around this, and they didn't seem inclined to. But the one big holdup I have with this is that the reason that the original seller got to keep the money is because he put no returns on the listing. And apparently that's ironclad with eBay. If you put no returns on your listing and it passes authentication, which it did, no returns. They're not, at this point, the guy gets to keep his money. I also think it's pretty funny that the card is going to eBay. What are they going to do with this card? eBay is going to be the owner of this fake PMG now, and I'm curious to know, what they're planning.
Put it on display at the National. Take pictures with the card.
Yeah, that's
well, it's better at least that eBay is going to have it rather than it.
You don't want to recirculate
ending up
it,
back in
obviously,
circulation. Yeah. And Beckett did crack it out of the slab, and now they put it into slab with proper labeling apparently, so we don't have to worry about it creeping back out into the population again in the future.
But my worry mirrors yours. Like, are people going to start abusing this no return policy to try to get fakes or, whatever the case may be, try to get past eBay, and then they're protected because no returns?
Yeah.
Give me my money. Like, that's a very weird, no nonsense type of policy.
I would be a little bit worried if I were eBay with this, because now if you've got a seller who knows they've got something that's not legit or is mislabeled, which happens in many more cases than just this, that seller now could say, well, I've got an avenue to sell my card, and if it gets through the authenticity guarantee, I guarantee I'm going to get my payout for my card. And then the buyer hopefully won't get hurt either, because then they could just complain to eBay and get their money back from eBay. But I'm going to get my money no matter what. So everybody wins.
But then you can have people
eBay
tag
loses.
up on that transaction.
Yeah, what do they sell to a friend?
Yeah, he bids it up to an ungodly amount. The guy keeps this ridiculous amount of money. Yeah, it's ripe for scams, unfortunately.
Look, and I don't want to lose sight of the bigger picture, which is the bigger picture here is the right thing was done at the end of the day. eBay stepped up and refunded the money. So I don't want to lose sight of that. kudos to eBay for refunding the money. They maybe didn't technically have to with the way their guarantee works, but eBay took it on the chin. eBay refunded the money. eBay did make it right. That's good on eBay. It does leave a lot of open questions about this in the future. But for now, good on eBay. The buyer was made whole, and the seller got his money as well. We don't know what we think about that, but the seller got his money as well. eBay is the one that took it on the chin for Beckett's screw up. All right, one thing, guys, you will not take it on the chin with is bidding on the beautiful cards in this week's PWCC Weekly Auction, especially a Kobe Bryant Flawless card from 2016 that is numbered to 10. It has game-used patches on the card and a beautiful Kobe Bryant autograph. That is a card you cannot go wrong with. It is in PWCC's weekly auction right now. What do you have your eye on, Teapot?
Sad news with Willie Mays passing. So I got a 1957 Topps Say Hey Kid, number 10 SGC 5. It's a really great design, and that's a great card to go after.
There you go, for sure. How about you, Doug?
I am a sucker for select XRCs. Typically, I prefer those over their base select rookies that actually come out in the right product. 2016 select XRC Patrick Mahomes Silver.
Yeah, that's a nice one. Yeah. That's a nice card. That's definitely a nice card. Cool. All of these cards plus thousands more are available on pwccmarketplace.com right now. And you can also vault your cards with PWCC. Use promo code SCI when you do. All right, guys, let's jump into the data dive segment for the week. Teapot, your video this last week on the hidden traps of sports card flipping. Take us through this a little bit, and then Doug and I might add a little extra to the mix.
Every week we highlight cards that are going up on the top 5, and we'll see 15, 20, 50% increases. And those can look pretty significant on higher dollar cards until you factor in all the hidden costs that can come with trying to flip online in particular. So I looked at, being aware of what your break-even cost is. And I just factored in, sales tax and eBay seller fees and said, this is, bake this into your cost 21% minimum, probably closer to 25 or 30% once you factor in the shipping costs to and from, if you're putting insurance on a big card that you're selling and paying for that out of pocket, the value of your time. So it kind of unpacks some of those. Then I looked at why grade ratios in particular can be really valuable when used properly, but also kind of misleading in that a PSA 10 to PSA 9 kaboom is only like a 1.6 multiplier. Whereas on other cards, it's 3 to 4x. So you have to kind of know what you're working with there. And then I just talked about some tips on when and how to sell cards at the right time. Make sure you actually sell the cards if you plan to profit from them. There's a little hack. If you set up a card for sale on a buy it now, right after a similar auction ends, that's slightly lower. People might scoop that. So a lot of good tips in the video and a lot of good comments on it too.
Yeah, that video's on the Market Movers YouTube channel right now. Teapot does awesome videos there every Saturday. Doug, I'd like to know from your perspective, what perils have you faced when trying to flip sports cards in the past?
There's too many to say within the allotted amount of time I have here, so I would just say go to the Market Movers YouTube channel and watch that video. It's very comprehensive. I'm not saying that just to shield the channel. It's comprehensive and it covers a lot. I would say be smart about where you're selling your cards because there are platforms available that have low or no fees. PWCC, for instance, you get the full hammer price on the card that you sell, and that's why I've been using them a lot more lately. Look for online communities, things like our Discord, the Sports Card Investor Discord. There's, people build up their brands on social media, on Instagram and on Twitter, and are able to sell there without fees as well. Maybe goods and services fees on PayPal, but that's a drop in the bucket compared to what you see on something like eBay. Mislabeled another good option. There's a ton out there that have much lower fees, and that can really help you avoid some of the typical issues that come with flipping cards and losing money. Be smart about how you buy. I mean, watch the video and learn how to buy smartly. Also be aware of auction houses that have premiums because that can be really tricky. You go and you put down a price for a card, but then you've got a buyer's premium. And then when you withdraw it from a vault, you've got taxes. You really have to be informed on all the fees that are possible when you're buying because a really good deal can not look like a very good deal very quickly.
Yeah, you're right. And I think if you're going to do it in high volume, you should be avoiding sales tax. I mean, that's one
LLCs,
way. Set up a business to do this in, set up a little simple LLC or something of that nature, get a resale certificate, and you can file that with eBay, and then you don't pay sales tax on your eBay purchases. Now, of course, you have to be, the items you are buying on eBay, you have to be buying those specifically for the purpose of resale in order to not pay sales tax. If you're not buying them to immediately resale, you need to pay sales tax. But if you're buying items for resale, you should not be paying sales tax. So there are ways to avoid some of that, but I think these are all really good tips and things that people need to be, certainly thinking about and watching out for. When you're selling sports cards, every percentage point matters.
Yep.
Every percentage point matters. And so you have to pay real close attention because your margins can get eaten up real fast with a lot of the fees like you talked about in your video.
Yep.
Really good stuff there. Also, guys, really good stuff. Wanted to mention to you, this has been our biggest week of sales ever on our Cards HQ website, cardshq.com. We have sold more cards this week than we ever have before. We do have a promotion that is ongoing right now, 10% off all supplies. That's Zion cases, that's top loaders. We've actually got some of the best prices on the internet on all of those supplies, tons of different supplies. So go check out cardshq.com and promo code SUPPLIES for 10% off all supplies on cardshq.com. First mailbag topic today, there's been some pretty big news coming out with two major shows coming up here over the course of the next month to 2 months now. Like we're about a month away from the National. Few weeks after the National is Fanatics Fest. These are going to be two probably the two biggest card-related shows of the entire year. The National announced that they are going to be doing official National trade nights 3 nights this year, and they're going to be run by the National. This is different. In previous years, there was one big trade night, and that was run by Card Collector 2 and Jimmy from Jimmy's Kentucky Roadshow. They bonded together and put that together. The National's taken it over, and they're going to be doing 3 official trade nights this year, Thursday night, Friday night, and Saturday night. The same place that the National's taking place, just in a separate room, but a very large room. That's the big news coming out of the National. Meanwhile, yesterday on the Jeff Wilson Show, we released an interview with the CEO of Fanatics Events, and he talked about all of their plans for Fanatics Fest. That's it. If you're thinking at all about Fanatics Fest, go watch that video on the Jeff Wilson Show channel on YouTube. One thing that I noted from that conversation was he really said Fanatics Fest is being set up as an event to appeal to the everyday sports fan, to draw them in with a high level of kind of experience, feel to the whole show, interactive exhibits, all of these things to kind of do. And then while they're there, introduce them to collecting through major activations from Topps and Fanatics Collect, the new version of PWCC, as well as all the dealers that are going to be there, including Cards HQ. What do you guys take away from this news? What do you think of both events? What are you looking forward to? Doug, I'm going to start with you on this one.
Yeah, I think it's interesting that the National has decided to do the 3 official trade nights. I'm curious of what the thought process is there, because if you've ever been to the National or any other big card show for that matter, it doesn't matter whether or not your trade night is official. Trade night's happening. It's happening at somebody's hotel lobby, in some hallway, in some lobby. They're going to find a way to make that happen. So I'm curious what the thought process is to try to make it specific to one certain area there. But I don't really care about the National as much as I care about Fanatics Fest. I've been to the National. A lot of people have been to the National. It's great. But I've never been to Fanatics Fest because there's never been one. I'm really interested to see what they do with their events going forward. This is probably going to be what they use as the standard to see what works and what doesn't work for the future of big Fanatics events. Also, this is specifically Fanatics Fest New York is what you're talking about, which is going to be catered more towards the everyday sports fan and just the overall experience. But they've got more throughout the year, like Fanatics Fest Orlando, that is actually going to be more like a card show.
Yeah.
So they're going to be balancing that out, and I think it's going to be interesting to see what those look like throughout the year, and you're going to probably see what the future of Fanatics events shapes up to be. They're going to be looking at what works and what doesn't work, and I'm happy to be a part of that.
And I think they're going to get real aggressive about these events. So Lance said in my interview with him that they're going to try to do potentially 2 of these really big premier events every year, possibly one in New York, possibly one in LA. Really big, type of events, East Coast, West Coast, and then they're going to do the more regional events like they're going to do in Orlando, and then they're going to do smaller events like they're doing one actually at the Pittsburgh Pirates Stadium here in the near future as well. So I wouldn't be surprised if looking out 2 years from now, you've got a whole full schedule with Fanatics events happening every month, some huge, some medium-sized, some small, all over the country. That's going to be interesting to see. Is that what stood out to you, Teapot, or what stood out to you from this news of Fanatics and from the National?
I'm actually really glad they're doing the formal trade nights, specifically because of the location this year. We talked a little bit about the fact that in Cleveland, it's not as convenient. The location isn't convenient. Maybe it's easiest to get to because the convention center is right by the airport. but then everything else is sort of distributed. The hotels are all distributed. So to have something on site right there that people can go downstairs to, it's going to be in the basement. I think that's really nice. The big thing is, I would say, I really hope the AC works. We've had challenges with that in the past in different places because it does get hot, it gets stuffy, it's loud, it's crowded. You're going to want to get there very early to get in line because there's going to be limited availability. The fire marshal will probably be there making sure they can't overfill the place.
Yeah, trade night.
What I really like about trade nights as opposed to the show itself, which I also love, is you see a lot more unique stuff at trade nights. The dealers typically, it can feel a little Groundhog Day. Like the same CJ Stroud cards are going to be everywhere. The same everything. The same Brock Purdy cards are going to be everywhere. You go to trade night, you see off the beaten path stuff because it's what people have in their Zion case. It's what they brought. That's a really cool opportunity to exchange some things. I got to say this, just because somebody gets to trade night early and gets their stuff set up does not mean that they are entitled to then demanding dealer pricing from other people who come to trade night. Trade night's neutral. It's open to everybody. So that always makes me laugh, and it just makes me walk away when somebody's like, well, I'll give you 70% on trade value. I'm like, you're not a dealer. This isn't how it works. So with Fanatics Fest, I just say I'm happy to see it drawing in more fans. 10x the hobby, let's go. I'm excited to see what that's going to be like.
Exciting times indeed. Also exciting times for our second mailbag story here for the person who hit the Anthony Volpe MLB debut patch card from 2023 Topps Chrome update. Now, people have been searching for this card for 7 months, ever since 2023 Topps Chrome update came out. And when that set was originally released, David Adams, Big Card Shop, put a $150,000 bounty on the Anthony Volpe 1/1 Major League debut patch card. Well, that bounty has gone unclaimed for 7 months until perhaps now, because the card was just pulled by Pine Tar Breaks. We don't know yet if the bounty is going to be claimed, or maybe there's news out there already. I haven't heard it yet. But David Adams did confirm that the bounty is still active. Yeah. So if the person who won that card in that break would like to give that card to David Adams, they will still honor the bounty and give them $150,000. Now, my question for you gentlemen is, would you take the bounty? I have a feeling I know your answer. I think it's going to be yes. So if that is the answer, then I'm also going to ask, what would the bounty have to be to make you question whether you would actually take the bounty or hold on to the card? Teapot, I'm going to start with you.
Yeah, I mean, look, I'm going to take it, and I'll give you some numbers as to why. First, I was really curious, like, was there an expiration or were there conditions? Was this a bounty that was issued where they could at any time just say, oh, he's injured severely, or he's back in the minors like Jackson Holliday and Spencer Torkelson, or he's not performing, like Drew Jones has a big bounty on his superfractor. He's down in the minors and he's struggling, and scouts are saying he may never even make it to the majors because he's got holes in his swing. So that was really interesting. But in terms of the highest sale, this is a no-brainer, and here's why. Volpe's most expensive public sale was $150,000. That was 2 years ago during the hype cycle of Anthony Volpe on his red Bowman auto to 5, way back when he had more hype.
That went for $150,000.
That was a big chunk. There was a ton of hype. His Bowman Sapphire Pod Parasha auto did $125,000 a year ago. That's
so
his
he's
one
had
of
some
one.
big sales.
The next closest was his Topps Chrome Superfractor rookie auto, which sold last October for $17.3K.
Ooh.
So if his Topps Chrome Superfractor auto did 17.3, that's a 10x premium basically that you're getting paid out on the MLB debut.
Yeah.
Do you guys know what the most expensive MLB debut patch is to sell so far?
I think it's less than 20K, right?
Yeah,
it's $9,000.
It's Masataka Yoshida at $9,000. Take the $150,000.
I think I found one in Market Movers that had sold for a little more than that, but it wasn't much more.
Nope.
He knows Market Movers.
I looked.
I think you need to edit your search parameter.
Nothing under MLB
I found
debut.
one that sold for over 9,000. There was one that sold, I think, in the 5 figures, but it doesn't matter. It wasn't much,
anywhere close.
It wasn't much more than that I think another one had sold for. So point taken. None of them have sold anywhere close to $150,000. So what would be a bounty that you would consider not selling the card at?
Maybe $25,000.
Okay. How about you, Doug? Are you selling the card?
100%, yeah. Okay. There's no doubt in my mind I'm taking that money and running. But as far as what number would it need to be for me to take pause, maybe like 10,000.
Okay, that little.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you're just going to take it.
Yeah, in the $10,000 neighborhood now, 7 months after the fact. Yeah, that's probably where I'm like, do I risk putting this thing up for auction? I'd have to start researching. I don't know baseball very well, so I'd have to start really looking into it and figuring out if I think I can get more than $10,000 for it. But that's the number where I'm starting to just, I don't know. You offer me $15,000, $20,000, something like that. Take it, no
all day
questions
long.
asked.
All day long.
Yeah,
All right,
it's easy.
interesting. What would your number be? How much money would you have to be offered that would make you question it? Let me know in the comments what you think below. It's going to be really interesting to see what the person who won that card does, if they do in fact take the bounty, or if they...
Credit to David Adams, though. I mean, 7 months later, I'm sure they don't want to pay that out. They were probably hoping that would hit on day one, like almost every other big hit does.
It is wild that it took 7 months. We had so much of that product here at Cards HQ that has all gotten sold or ripped through. I think we have like 2 boxes left in our showcase. And so it's crazy that all of these boxes all over the nation have been sold and ripped, and then finally it comes out of a box all these months later by a relatively small breaker too, by Pine Tar Breaks. So who knew? Who knew? But there you go. Fun story for sure. All right, guys, I appreciate you guys watching the show. Check out PWCC's weekly auction and check out cardshq.com as well. And we will see you soon with our next episode. Take care.